Italy. This is the Palazzo Vecchio and is the town hall of Florence, Italy. So I'm focusing on Duke Cosimo I de' Medici. He later became the Grand Duke of Tuscany. He moved his official seat from the Medici Palace in Via Larga to the Palazzo della Signoria in May 1540, which is just a signal of the Medici power moving to Florence directly. So once Cosimo I was living in the Palazzo Pitti, he officially renamed his former palace to the Palazzo Vecchio, which means the Old Palace. And he did a few additions, and essentially he commissioned Giorgio Vasari to be the architect, decorator, at some points the artist, within some of the rooms that he wanted to design. So Cosimo I extended the palace and made the apartments of the elements, which happened to be his private quarters. And they were originally built under the direction of Battista del Tasso from 1551 to 1555, but then he died. So then everything went to Giorgio Vasari, and one of his most notable rooms is the Room of the Elements, which is what I'm presenting today. So the reason for the name of this room is because it is dedicated to the four elements, which is air, water, fire, and earth. And basically the ceiling is dedicated to the air with a massive fresco, while the three windowless walls celebrate water, fire, and earth with also these big frescoes on each of these walls. And there are different painters for each of the frescoes, so I will more specifically go through them in the next few slides. Before I dive into the frescoes, I just wanted to point out the marble fireplace that is in this room, because it was actually created by Bartolomeo Amonati. Don't know if I pronounced that right, but we would later see him in the Fountain of Neptune, which was also created for Cosimo I because his face is pretty much the face of Neptune in that fountain. So I just wanted to point that out because obviously he's a very significant artist of this time. So the frescoes were painted between 1555 and 1557. This specific painting is the mutilation of Uranus by Saturn, and it was painted by Giorgio Vasari and Cristofano Gherardi. And it's basically the allegory of air. It is Saturn, who's the god of time, surrounded by allegories of the creator's prerogatives, and he mutilates Uranus, who's the god of sky, whose seed spawns the four elements. So this is the beginning of all of the elements. So the next fresco is also painted by Giorgio Vasari and Cristofano Gherardi, and this is the allegory of water. It's called the Birth of Venus, and it's the gods of water are paying tribute to Venus because she's born of the seed spilled into the sea from the previous painting. So what is depicted here is Venus, who's in the middle, standing on a shell, surrounded by divine and sea creatures paying homage to her. On the left is Teti, on the opposite side is the god of the sea, Neptune. So he stands still and he's full of admiration for such a beautiful goddess coming out of the waves. There are the Tritons and the Nereids, and they're offering things such as shells and pearls and corals. So this is a clear depiction of the element of water. So the next fresco is also painted by, I guess, both of them. Some of the websites that I found said that it was mostly painted by Gherardi, but this is the allegory of Earth, as it is called the fruits of Earth offered to Saturn. So basically what is depicted is Saturn is seated in the middle. He is the god of sowing and the protector of agriculture, and he is offered by men and women the first fruits of earth, flowers, and honey. Near the gods rests the Capricorn zodiac sign of the Duke Cosimo I, which on the right, the goddess of chance holds the elements composing the Duke's symbol, the turtle with the sail. On the left appears the goddess Demetra, who's mother of earth, with the horn of abundance. So here it's very clear that Cosimo I wanted his family to be depicted in the paintings. It's just another representation of how the Medici really wanted to have a firm powerful stance over Florence. So the last fresco is called Vulcan's Forge, and again, it was painted by Cristofano Gherardi and Giorgio Vasari, but from what I've seen on the internet, it gives more of the credit to Gherardi. I don't know if that means anything, but basically all of the frescoes were painted by the two of them, Gherardi being Vasari's assistant. But yeah, this is very clearly the allegory of fire, as Vulcan is the center of the fresco and he is the Roman god of fire. So, overall, I really did find these works just incredibly beautiful. I think they do a very good job expressing the different elements through the mythology. And on top of that, I mean, it's just very clear that the Medici family really wanted to show just how much power they had and how much influence they had over Florence. And they did a lot of that by comparing themselves to the gods in mythology. And this was just another representation.